Welcome to this episode of Listen to Your Coaches, where we talk about people who listen to their coaches. I'm your coach, Mike Wilkins, here with Coach Will Morrill. Will, why don't you get us started and what we're going to talk to about today?
All right, so we got a lot of stuff to talk about today. First thing, though, is we just had the first UFC fights of the year. There's a
2024.
little bit of a break, which I'm sure they all need, but
Yeah.
it's a bummer when you're hanging out.
What was the
and you're
last? The last fight, December 16th
Yeah,
to
yeah,
January 13th. So
Yeah.
nearly a month.
yeah. Which
4 weeks. 4 week break.
it's kind of fun when you get to post up on a Saturday. And
Do
watch
you
the
remember when, not only was there only one pay-per-view a month, but remember back when there was four
events
events
a
a year?
Yeah, and it was huge every time. You're
Yeah.
like, dude, I wonder who's gonna be on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, very different times.
Very different times. I like these times better.
Dude, it's great because then, on a random Saturday, you're just like, oh, dude, there's
Who's
a fight
fighting
night
tonight?
on.
Yeah.
Oh, I wonder who's on it. And every once in a while, there's a dude who about, who's earlier in, and you're like, oh, this is cool. I'm gonna see him on the way
Generally through the year, I just assume that oh, it's Saturday, there's probably fights on.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I
Most of the time,
prefer
you're
that
right.
there are.
Yeah.
I prefer that there are. Yeah.
So, anyways, yeah, we're gonna start by talking about the UFC from this past weekend, which you did not watch those fights, correct?
Did not.
All right, so I'm gonna be filling you in a lot. Let's check the notes here. I don't want to talk about everything. Overall, the card was medium. I wasn't watching it super intensely. I watched all the prelims and all the fights, so I'm kind of hanging out,
Right.
chilling with the wife, playing on the phone. You know what I mean? So I wasn't watching perfectly,
Right.
from a coaching standpoint. But overall, I think it was a decent card.
Yeah.
Nothing explosive.
Any fights that happen between November and end of March, I'm hit or miss with, right? Because if wrestling's on, I'm watching wrestling, And then this year is an Olympic year, so now it's going to push it to April, and then August. Fights in August are going to take a big backseat to the Olympics. Yeah,
I'll be here to fill you in.
right on.
So, I've only got 3 fights that I really want to talk about here. Let's start with the main event. We'll work our way down.
Who was the main event?
Ankalaev versus Johnny Walker.
Mm-hmm.
So, which I don't want to say it wasn't a strong. I mean, it was a title eliminator. So, Ankalaev is probably going to get the next title shot, I believe.
Okay.
But first of all, okay, so he KO'd Johnny Walker in round 2.
Right.
He dropped him with, I think, a right hand, and then he sat him down and he hit him with this crazy uppercut while he's sitting down and smashed his nose up.
Oh, wow.
And he wasn't out or anything, but he was just ugh! His nose exploded.
Yeah.
So it was super legit stoppage and everything. Couple things. So one, why are fighters from Dagestan so good?
Dude, it's tough over there. It's hard out here.
That's got to be
That's
some
the
of
way
it.
out, dude. That's the way out. I just think it's so prominently supported over there would be my best guess. So Dagestan also incredible pedigree for wrestling, right? And from what I've heard, that a lot of that has moved to MMA.
Interesting. Those
Like
resources and coaches and such.
Yeah, and those maybe that stable of kids that they had focused on freestyle wrestling, maybe only half of them are focused on freestyle, and now there's an avenue for the other half, especially with Habib and Islam. Their prominence, I've heard that it's really shifted gears over there. So I think we're only at the beginning of it. And the other thing too is even that whole region, the Caucasus region, it's not very big.
No.
And there's not many people.
Yeah.
It's the size of I think it's rough. You could population and size wise, I think it's pretty comparable to just Pennsylvania.
I think Dagestan's probably about that size, and Azerbaijan's not much bigger.
Yeah.
Georgia, they're all relatively small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and population wise as well.
Yeah.
So dude, it's pretty impressive, but I think
Super impressive.
it's what's pressing and what's prominent, in the United States, right? Football, so most kids probably initially dream of
Right.
being an NFL star or basketball or things like that, where over there that is the main thing.
Right, exactly. It's I'm going to be a champion wrestler.
Yeah, main that is the pinnacle of athletic performance over there.
Now, all right, look, this is a good question for you. As a, grappling specialist, what would you say the Dagestanis, and we'll just kind of lump in all of that area, what do they do differently wrestling-wise than the rest of the world currently, or at least they used to do, or
In wrestling?
MMA-specific wrestling?
MMA specific wrestling, I don't know. I just feel like they control the body more. The body and like they control their opponent more with their legs, right?
That's what I thought
You
you were
know,
gonna say.
if you look at like if you just think of like your basic jiu-jitsu and you think of a closed guard, like what makes a closed guard such a strong position, even though you're on your back, is that your legs are the application in what is controlling your opponent, leaving your hands free to do other things, such as potentially defend yourself, strike, hold on the arms, right?
Yeah,
You don't
catch
have
the
to worry about
arms.
holding on to the rest of the body because your legs are doing that.
Right.
So like it's like the Dagestanis, they are kind of doing that from the top position. They're really utilizing their lower body to control their opponent, which frees up their upper body to strike or manipulate, the upper half's limbs, Whereas American wrestlers, I would say, due to folk style wrestling, and just like the way that it's developed, and I'm not like saying anything's wrong with it.
Right.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying like where it's
Stylistically.
different.
Yeah.
Like we initially are holding the legs with our arms, right? So if I've double legged you and I'm holding and I'm thinking about controlling your legs with your arms, then I'm working to get my chest on your chest, and I'm assuming I'm going to maintain that top position with a chest to chest connection, right? But where are my legs? Off to the side, or even if I'm in mount, they're over like your
Right.
stomach area,
They're not
which
wrapped.
gives you use of your legs to like bridge and stuff. Whereas you see these guys, they wrap the legs, so their legs are wrapped around like the thigh area,
Right.
giving them control over the lower body and the hips, which takes away a lot of the mobility and a lot of the bridging, taking away the majority of the mobility for the bottom person. And what does it leave you? It leaves you free arms, right? And yeah, those free arms might have to be like moving wrists and stuff like that, picking hands off of like them trying to escape the position. But then like you have moments of freedom where you strike, and then when that moment of freedom you struck that person, where'd their hands go? Up. And then
Exactly.
you climb the body to those more dominant positions.
See, I thought that's what you were gonna say, just based on like what I see and everything. I was wondering if there was something else more glaring, but yeah, that's
No, I mean, well, there might. I don't think there's anything more glaring. I just think it's not as big of a secret as like people might think, right?
Right.
It's like, oh, what are they doing so different, dude? It's right in front of our
yeah,
face.
yeah,
They're doing it right in front of our face.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's on TV.
Yeah, they're just very good at it because they put a priority on it,
Right.
right? And that's one of those things. It's not just as simple as me being like, oh, hey, start to like wrap up their legs instead of going to mount on the stomach, right? Go to mount over the thighs. Therefore, you can wrap up the legs. Just make sure you're past the knee line. I can tell you that conceptually, right? And you're going to be like, okay. You're going to be a little bit okay at it. And you're like, oh man, they still escaped. They pushed my hips down past the knee, and now they're in a butterfly guard, or this or that, or they were able to knock me off. It's like the more you do it, like the more you're going to be able to like float that position and ride that position and control that position longer.
And despite like knowing what the intricacies of those positions are, feeling it, especially a control position like mount, like having a feel for it is so important. And I think, like you're saying, I bet they spend a lot of time
there's a
there.
feel for it, and you're only going to get that feel through repetition, through like doing it, right? And the problem is like maybe we have what's it called when you need the reward right away, like instant gratification.
Oh yeah.
Right. So like if you like try a new technique and it doesn't work, you either A, chalk it up to a bad technique, B, say, oh, it's still a good technique, but it's just not for me,
Right.
or A, B, or C, be like, oh, it's a good technique and it might be for me, but I'm just not good at it.
Right.
And you're trying to win now.
Yeah.
You're trying to win now. So instead of doing it over and over and over and maybe losing it, but incrementally getting better at it, like putting your time in there, you're like, oh, well, I got to win this practice because I can't have my partner Joe, who I normally beat, win today.
Right.
So I'm just going to go to a position that I'm more comfortable with already. So that way I can win practice today.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem. And I'm fully have been guilty of it and still
we all
am
have.
guilty of
Yeah.
it. And but like this is like the wisdom.
Yeah.
This is me who's done it wrong, has done it right and wrong. Just like imparting the wisdom. I think another thing about like the Dagestanis or that region is they're just a tough people. Hard times over there. Tough build, tough men, right?
Living in the mountains.
Yeah, living in the mountains. It's just like it's a tough life. So you know, naturally tough people,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And what does that do? That allows them, like, if you look at like their way of getting the fights to the ground, it's relentless.
Yeah, yeah. It's
It's
pressure,
relentless,
pressure,
right?
pressure.
So when you might see like, you know, perhaps like for a looser term, like an American wrestler take a shot, get stuffed, back up, boom, boom, set it up, take a shot, get stuffed, back up, boom, boom, set it up, take a shot, get stuffed. Now they're like, I'm striking the rest of the fight.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like where like they will stay on it. Like it doesn't matter how many times they get denied, they're going for it until they get it or time ran out.
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean?
And
Like
they'll
there's
chain
no
the whole time.
yeah, there's no stopping going for it. It's like that is the only goal.
Right, right.
That is the only goal. The game that they are playing is acquiring that takedown to that position, and the only thing that stops them from doing it is the timer.
Yep.
You know, or like an opponent like
Who can put him out?
who puts them out, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't make them stop attempting it.
Oh,
they're
not at
just
all.
going to attempt it, and they're never discouraged. A failure does not discourage them.
Right. It's just that now my guy's this much weaker for the next one.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, that's it.
What
yeah.
a great mindset.
Yeah, I mean, it's very impressive, and like, you know, it's like, wow, that's really easy. Really easy. Hey, let's just do it.
Yep.
But easier said than done.
Sure is.
You know, you're going to go through some breaking points, and I think like if you want to develop a game similar to that, you're be okay with like be moderately okay with breaking in practice. Like push yourself to the point where you do break. You know,
'Cause that's the only way you can get that
yeah, you
momentum a
can
little higher each
level
time.
it up. Now, I don't want you to be too okay with breaking because therefore then you accept breaking when maybe you should when you shouldn't be. But to go there and like truly break, like just like be relentless on it for 3 minutes, and then you're just like, I have 0 left, and then you just get walked for the next 2 minutes against somebody who maybe you normally beat, right? But you're now down to literally 0 of what you have left.
Developmental mindset instead of a
Yeah.
competitive,
And it's
competitive
tough.
mindset,
That's
yeah.
such a tough mindset to have, you know?
Sure is.
And especially in this sport, in combat sports, you know, it's such a tough mindset to have. But you hear of a lot of like really good people having that mindset. Like some people who come to mind who our audience is likely familiar with. First person that comes to mind for me is Gary Tunnen, right? And like you hear often like, oh, like he'll get submitted by people way worse than him like 5 times
Right.
in a practice, right? And he's like, oh, I got submitted 5 times today. And you're like, how? You're the, like, it was Gordon in the room? Like, you're the
Right.
second best dude in this room. You know, who was submitting you? But, like, you know what I mean? Like, he's doing, like, that mindset into where he's, like, you know, the development mindset, right?
Exactly.
Like he's in an arm lock working on escapes and, like you got it, you know? But he doesn't bother him.
Yeah.
He's, like, bigger picture, working on
Exactly.
the escapes and stuff like that. And then in the wrestling community, it's thought like a lot of the Penn State guys are known for it, but like I've been told that Jason Nolf was like that, like even in high school.
That's awesome.
Even in high school, I was told that Jason Nolf, like you would see him getting taken down by guys who weren't nearly as good as him in practice because he's trying new stuff and developing new stuff. And from what I've heard through like interviews with their coaches and stuff, it was like it wasn't uncommon for that to be happening, and he was never shook about it.
That's so cool.
Whereas you counter that with another great wrestler, like, you know, more than one way to fry a fish. Another great wrestler, Spencer Lee, the same coach who I heard in this interview, Jody Strittmatter, talk about it, who's a Young Guns Club coach, would say like Spencer would get 50 takedowns and get taken down once, and he would be like, and then like on the ride home, he'd be telling his dad how he sucks and like stuff like that. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just different mindset, but they both achieved 3-time
Greatness.
NCAA champs, like, you know?
So wild. And it's
Yeah.
interesting too, like, you know, that balance between having an ego, which is necessary in this sport,
Yeah.
and also tempering that ego in order to develop. Like, it's a fine line you walk, you know. And as coaches, I know that we definitely have struggles with that with certain people and like figuring out where that line is, you know,
Yeah.
who to
Yeah.
push,
It's
who
tough.
to pull back. It's very tough.
And it's a learning process. Like, that's one of the cool things. If we were to speak to our own experiences, one of the things that we have on our time is like, dude, we're so, like, for coaching, we're so young. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh, like, dude, like 20 years from now, I'll be in my 50s. I'll be like a coach's age.
Yeah.
With already like 25 years of
Yeah,
coaching
dude.
experience, though. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't expect to like have it nailed down. I want to have it nailed down as much as I possibly can for this moment. but like I expect there to be room for me to improve.
Yeah, that's an important thing to remember too, because like I've been a full-time coach my entire adult life. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? And so like I'm like I have so much experience. I've been doing this forever. But also like sometimes you gotta remember, like dude, we're still young.
still,
Like,
yeah, still
we
tons
got
of
time.
time. It'd be like someone in like who just got to high school in wrestling, right? And they're
Right.
like, I've been wrestling since I was 5, and now I'm 15, and I'm still losing matches and
Yeah.
stuff. It's like, dude, you're a sophomore.
Yeah.
Like, relax. Like, your matches don't even matter yet. Like, you know what I mean?
Totally.
Like, yeah. But to them, like, it was their whole life.
Yeah, and it's the world to them.
So yeah, perspective.
One last thing about the Dagestanis, I got a little bit of insider information here. Do you remember you and I used to train a young Russian fella?
Artem.
Artem, yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember one time he was from, I believe, like near Moscow.
Okay, yeah.
Or
That's a bit away.
Yeah, exactly. More of like what people think of as like Russia.
Yeah.
Which I guess Dagestan's not technically right. It doesn't matter. But I was in the sauna with him one time, and I was like, dude, what's up with all these Dagestan? This was like many years ago when like Khabib's on the way up and everything. I was like, why are these Dagestanis so good? And he was like, oh, they're very tough. All they do is swim, eat meat and fruit, and train. I was like, dude, that's so hardcore.
Yeah.
Like, and I believe them too. They're just out there, crushing steaks and apples and swimming around in like cold lakes and stuff.
There's a guy, Abdul Rashid Sajalayev, who is currently an active wrestler, and he's like on path to like potentially going down as the greatest ever.
Wow.
Right? Yeah. So he won a world title as an 18-year-old in 2014. Then he won in 15. He won the Olympics in 16. Right? Then he went up a weight, lost to Kyle Snyder in 17, but then beat him in 18, then won in 19, then won the Olympics in 20, and then won the Worlds in 2021. And those were only 10 weeks apart because the Olympics got postponed to 2021.
Oh, that's right.
So
Yeah.
then 10 weeks later, we had the World Championships too. So
That's
bye-bye.
nuts.
And then he's Russian, so they were barred. Barred from the 2022 Worlds. And then this year in the 2023 Worlds, he actually lost in the semis. He to one of his students. Yeah, Tamizov, who trains out of the Abdul Rashid Shajalayev Training Center.
Dude, that's so nuts.
Wrestles for Bahrain because he can't wrestle for Russia because there's only one. But like he had like a neck thing, and he had to concede. He was getting beat, but he had to concede the match due to the neck thing. So it's like, oh, like is this kid the next guy, right? But like I mean, like what like a streak, right? Like to be the best in the world every year from 2014 to 2023,
and to lose to Snyder and then come back and get it. Like,
yeah, and that was he went from 86 kilo to 97 kilo.
Yeah, that's
which is a huge jump.
Yeah,
that's 189 to 213.
Yeah, that's ridiculous
in 1 year.
Unreal.
So but like he was gonna go down as like the greatest ever, and like he would like win the Olympics, and his like he would like treat himself to a horse. Like he'd buy a horse.
Yeah.
Not to eat. To have a horse.
To ride around.
Yeah. I know we were talking about meat and stuff. Yeah. But like that was his thing. He's like, oh, sick. I'm getting a new horse.
Apparently that's what Uncle Ive's into.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
Oh, there you
like
go.
Just ride horses and stuff.
Makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. He's like, oh, sick. I'm getting a new horse. Like it'd be like us. Be like if we were like in the cars, like, oh, sick. I'm getting a new Ferrari because I just won the Olympics. I'm gonna get a new Ferrari. He's like, sick. I'm getting a horse.
That's so awesome. Oh man. You got anything to add about like Dagestani, that part of the world?
No, dude, but I think maybe not super fortunate for us. I think they're just at the beginning, dude. I think like I don't even think they hit their stride.
See, I don't like look at it as like an us versus them thing. I just look at it as like, oh, what can we learn from that? You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, but I mean like like it's not like they've arrived, but they're not here.
Right, yeah. The wave is still coming. We just got the tip of it.
Dude, like the wave that's going to hit us, like those kids right now are like 9 and 10 years old.
Yep.
They're going to come hit us and we're going to be like, yo. Like there's a chance that we're going to see like 70% of the champs be from there. And then when you put it in perspective, it's this small and their population is very small. Like it's kind of crazy, but it's like, what's the priority there? Like that's the priority.
Right. Yeah.
No,
that's cool. And again, I think there's lots of stuff to learn from it. So like I'm excited to see where that goes. So speaking of the same fight, what do you do with Johnny Walker? Because like Johnny Walker's this dude who is like super, and I guess this kind of
He's
flows
still
into the last
entertaining.
thing. But that's the thing, is he's entertaining. He's clearly good because he made it this far. You know what I mean? And like he can win big fights, but also like I believe he's chinny-ish to a degree. Like, have you ever seen that video of him getting knocked out like 3 times in one fight?
Yeah.
Like he's been doing that forever. I guarantee you, he's spent at least some years sparring super hard and doing that and sparring too. And like,
Yeah.
you know, I don't ever see him like winning a championship. But also, like, if you're the UFC, you're like, dude, we gotta make big fights, you know. So like, is that what you do with them? You just put them in with cool names and just
Yeah, I
use
think
them
so.
as like
He's
a
a
high
prize
level
fighter.
gatekeeper.
Prize fighter.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
And like, here's the thing: he turns from like, you know, like a title trajectory type guy to a prize fighter, fights for the money, and like, dude, a little string goes right, switch yourself back.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like, I'm hunting the title again.
That's true. Yeah, you're not
You
like
know?
destined to be a journeyman
Yeah, yeah.
just because like
Yeah.
that's what people thought about Forrest Griffin, Bisping, like all kinds of guys.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Who-
yeah. Bisbing for sure. Yeah, that fits. And then there he is, champ.
So Johnny Walker's not gone. He's just
Yeah.
not getting a title shot soon.
Yeah, no. Just turn into a prize fighter, take these fun fights, fun matchups, make money, and then if a streak happens, now you're back. You're
Right.
back into like chasing a title.
Exactly.
Yeah, just let it happen.
And also, this takes me to my last point about this fight is like kind of like where the light heavyweight division is like it's not that hard to get a streak. You know,
Yeah.
you beat 2 guys in a row, and also think about the guys who are in like the top 10. I should have written this down, but it's like, you know, you've got Ankalaev, Johnny Walker. I think Khalil Roundtree is finally in there.
Yuri, Prokoska.
Yeah, Yuri. Who else would be in there? Oh, Rachik, however you
Yep.
say his name. Volkan Ozdemir, who I think is on the tail end of his career. You know what I mean? You got a lot of guys who like.
Is
you know,
Anthony Smith up in that range?
he's probably right around there. You know, you got a lot of guys who are like older. A lot of guys who are kind of like on the way out. A lot of guys. How do I say this like respectfully? Maybe not as skilled as you and I might think of like some bantamweights as being, you know, who are in the top
Yeah.
10. It's like this weird division where like I'm not super excited by it, which is crazy because you think about it like when I got into the UFC, I remember the first one of the first UFC events that I was like fired up about. I don't even know if I had access to being able to see it. I was like so young, but I was like, I can't wait to see like how this goes down or hear about it. It was Chuck versus Tito. I don't remember which one it was,
Oh yeah.
but like there was a long time where
That's
that
a
was the
hot
division.
minute ago.
you know?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Tito, Chuck, you know, Randy, all these massive stars in that division. Like that was probably the main UFC division back then.
Oh, 205 was absolutely the main UFC division, and it kind of like stayed that way for a while too, because then up came like Rashad and Shogun, and then John Jones, you know, Rampage,
that's
Forrest
right.
Griffin. Like if you run through like the lineage of the champions there, Vitor Belfort was a champ. Was he never a light heavy? I don't think he was ever 205 pound champ. I think he was
I don't
heavyweight.
think so. He was heavyweight way back in the day.
Yeah. And stuff like that. So like, yeah, good. You know, it was definitely the money making division. You know.
It just kind of fell off.
Yeah, I mean, like, well, it's the bell curve.
Yeah.
You know, it makes sense. Like, so like, at that time, those dudes were big enough, but also athletic enough that it was eye pleasing. And now we're to the point where like, you know, it's like, all right, like, dude, like 55 and 70. And like 45, 55, 70. Like 55 is the tip of that bell curve, I think.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
where it's just like, dude, like,
You said
like
the most
they
talent.
have it all. They have it all. It's it's like the perfect storm. You know, they got everything.
They got power. They have
Power, speed,
cardio,
technique,
yep.
cardio.
And you know what else is cool about 55? And one of the reasons I don't think we see some of the athleticism in light heavyweight. Well, all right, there's 2 reasons for that. One, I think can be explained, you know, bell curve wise. Like you don't have that many guys there, and the guys who are that big, they might go play football.
That's
You
the
know
other
what I mean?
thing too. Is like, since this is a weight class sport, right? Like it's like, okay, like especially the lower weights. Like take your like featherweights and your bantamweights, and it's like, okay, like freak athletes.
Yeah.
Freak athletes. Like, okay, if Henry Cejudo, Olympic gold medalist, 2-division UFC champion. All right, tell me he's 6'4", 220, and he's not playing some type of professional like ball sport,
Right.
Where you're
Yeah.
making, you know what I mean?
You're making so much more money, you know, outside of
And
football.
not
it's
only
less
that, there's
dangerous.
so much more resources coming up as a child then
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like how many basketball teams are there compared to wrestling teams?
Right.
You know, it's
Right.
like, yeah.
I think that's one reason why we see the light heavyweight division maybe not be as exciting. And the other thing when we compare, I was just thinking about this like current day to like Chuck's reign is, and again I'm not trying to accuse anyone of anything, but I think that we maybe saw some more
Some steroids,
athleticism,
some steroid usage,
yeah,
some performance enhancing drugs.
yes.
Yeah.
Whereas I mean they still obviously get used today, but probably not the same to the same degree. So you don't have like those monsters who are, as explosive as they could be and such.
This is true.
Yeah, we'll have to do a pod where we discuss that sort of thing at some point.
What, like fighters on steroids?
Yeah, steroids and all the avenues you can go down with that. But
Yeah.
another pod.
Yeah.
All right, so that's all I had to talk about with that fight. It was decent. I kind of expected to go exactly that way, and Uncle Ive definitely deserves the next title shot. Next fight I want to talk about. There's only 3 of them. Jim Miller.
Oh, what a G.
Dude, yeah. This was, okay, hold on, I had to write this down. Okay, so that's his 26th win in 43 UFC fights.
Wow.
Like, dude. And okay, also, so you didn't see the fight. He dominated, maybe I shouldn't say dominated, but he was clearly winning for 2 rounds.
43
right?
UFC fights?
Yeah. That's just in the UFC, too. Like, he had other pro fights.
Yeah, but I wonder how many before the UFC. I bet you only like less than 10, probably. People were getting in earlier back then. He was a CFFC champ.
So
he was the first lightweight champ.
I
think he won it at CFFC 5 or something.
So let's say he had somewhere between 5 and 10 probably pro fights before the UFC. That's crazy. So, well, hold on. So first of all, he was winning those first 2 rounds. He was like outstriking his guy. He fought Gabriel Benitez.
Yeah.
He got
I did see that he finished him.
Rear naked face crank type deal in the 3rd round. I was so happy for him. I'm just like so fired up that he's like still around.
Yeah.
And okay, so this is really.
Did he get beat up at all?
No.
Just came out clean?
Yeah.
Good, he can get on 300.
Yeah, that'd be sick.
He was on 100 and 200.
Dude, that's so incredible.
Yeah, he needs to be on 300.
I remember watching those too, being like, I don't know, I was like early 20s or something.
I remember UFC 100 had the yellow canvas.
Yep,
that was sick.
So cool. That one, I went with my boy Joe. We went to a B-Dubs to watch the fights, and it was so packed and so like crammed already that we sat on the curb outside and watched through the window.
No way.
That's how bad I wanted to watch.
Damn.
Different times. But the main point with Jim Miller, right? First off, just incredible, right?
Yeah, different times in the fact that you wouldn't just go home and order it. Like, how old were you?
Yeah, dude.
How old were you?
How old was I?
Yeah, UFC 100. What do you think that was? You were in college?
I was probably in college, yeah.
So you're like
20-ish.
20.
Yeah.
Man, imagine that, dude. Like the struggle to buy a UFC pay-per-view at the age 20, and like now.
Yeah, like
now I'll buy one and fall asleep.
Yeah, dude. Well, not only that, but I was thinking back to like some of the early UFCs, like again Chuck Tito, stuff like that. I was like, I don't know, 16 or something. I was like, my parents didn't have cable. I don't even know how I'm gonna have access to this.
Yeah.
Like,
I think about going. I used to go to B-Dubs to watch UFC pay-per-views, right? And like you would get there, like because we were hardcore, so we'd get there for the prelims.
Yep.
So we'd be there from 8 p.m. to 1 a.m. Just sitting at the table, like trying to like, not ruin it for the waitresses.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're trying to like order some things, but you're also broke. And then it would turn out you get your bill at the end of the night, and you spent like $100.
Yeah.
You're like, I should just ordered the pay-per-view.
Yup.
Yeah.
I used to at Penn State. There was a Hooters. Now I can't remember where it was. It doesn't exist anymore. And some of my friends would go there, Joe, Kevin, and we would always each get a 50 wing plate, and that way that's gonna last you quite some time. You know what I mean?
There's no chance I could eat 50 wings in a
They were kind of small. It was a different time. I was boxing. Metabolism was a little faster, but we're off track.
Would you finish?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Oh.
Dude, when I was in college, so I had a nutrition class where I actually had to track my calories. And I was eating, and keep in mind, I was fighting 165. I'm 6'2".
Yeah.
And I was eating between 5,000 and 6,000 calories a day. And I know
That's
people are all
insane.
like, oh, like Michael Phelps, 10,000. Like, shut up. No, you don't.
Yeah.
I don't believe that. And 2, eating 5,000 calories, between 5 and 6, every day is really hard. Like,
dude, that
really
sounds
hard.
horrible.
Plus, I was training all the time. I was like super skinny and frail. Dude, again, off topic. It was crazy. But so this is the real question I have with Jim Miller. And I have one theory here, but I want to hear your thoughts on this. How has he managed to stay around so long? So, okay, interesting enough.
Do you know he had Lyme's disease too?
I did not know that, and that's shocking.
Yeah, that's what he had a struggle. like where he was out for a while. Like it was like middle, like I would say in the second half of his career, but like there was like a struggle. Like basically when he came out of title contention,
Yeah.
there is like, and he like wasn't fighting as oftenly, and then like he found out he had Lyme's disease.
Dude, that's so crazy. That's like so debilitating.
Dude, yeah.
But so I was going to compare him to Andrei Arlovsky, right? Because they fought on the same card. Andrei was on that card as well. He lost, unfortunately. But Andrei makes sense, right? Because as a heavyweight, it's like, okay, cool. You know, you're 20 or whatever he was when he was the champ. You know, most likely juiced up, you know. And who do you have to beat? You have to beat Tim Sylvia and Cabbage. You know?
Yo, Cabbage Carrera. Oh my. Wow, what a pull.
So, again.
Oh, I forgot about him.
Dude, I just remember it was either him fighting Sylvia or Arlovsky. And it was just, he just walked forward and ate like 1,000 punches. It was nuts. But anyways, so like Arlovsky, like it made sense. You're young, you know, he was a decent boxer, you know, halfway decent takedown defense, and you have like 5 guys you need to beat, and you're juiced out of your mind, like makes sense. And then obviously heavyweights, you know, kind of age a little bit, you know, better in the sport because speed is less of a factor.
Yeah.
And you learn more things in setting traps. And, you know, when you're, you know, 250 pounds, even if your power goes a little bit, like you can still put...
There's enough there that you're putting anybody out.
Exactly. So like Andrei makes sense to me, right? And also Andrei has been on like a streak where it's like, you know, win one, lose one, blah, 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 whatever. Jim Miller, I think he's... Maybe I'm off on this. I believe he's 5-1 in his last 6 fights, something like that. He's at lightweight, and I mean, how old is he? He's got to be in his early 40s, probably.
Dude, I think he's 54. No, I'm just kidding.
But like, how has he managed to last this long?
Just built different.
I mean, dude, yeah.
Clearly.
He really is.
Clearly. I don't know. I think maybe it's a little bit of his fighting style. Like, he doesn't really take a lot of, like, he's not, like, standing in front of you getting crushed.
But he has. Like, think about him, I think, Lozon, maybe?
Yeah.
Like, he's been in wars. Like, he's durable.
Yeah. But, like, that's not his main
style, yeah.
Right? Like, yeah, like, you know, like, he's getting to the clinch and he's getting his takedowns. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So he's not, like, living and dying in the wars. Like, he's been in wars. I mean, like, what? He's had 43 UFC fights. Like, you can't avoid it.
Yeah, exactly. Eventually, you're going to have some.
Yeah. And there's definitely instances back in certain eras of his career, because now his career has eras. Like,
yeah,
you know
dude,
what I mean? It's
nuts.
like, oh, like the young era, the title hunt era, then the post title hunt era, the post Lyme's disease era. Yeah. And now it's like senior citizen era.
Yeah, dude.
You know, and like, you know, he just like, I mean, he's clearly very intelligent. Clearly, like, you know, like, so like I've been really big lately on talking about techniques and tactics. Like, that's what you win with. You win with techniques and tactics. You know, clearly just like an absolute master of tactics, you know?
So my answer was kind of along those lines, and I think you kind of more broadly hit the nail on the head. My kind of reasoning here is I think his jiu-jitsu is really what has allowed him to go so long, right? Because think about it. Jim Miller's jiu-jitsu back in the day relative to the rest of the UFC was like really good.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that because, like you said, like his, you know, willingness to change levels in the middle of a firefight and be like, nope, I'm going to take you down now.
Yeah.
And then like have that smothering, dominant jiu-jitsu.
And he's good in all top and bottom.
Exactly, yeah. Like I
remember he had like, dude, I'm not 100%. This is just completely jumping in my head. But like, I think there was a fighter, Fabricio Camoes, and I think Jim Miller hit like some sick armbar from the bottom on him.
Wouldn't be surprised.
I could be completely wrong, but for some reason that's just jumped in my head.
Well, regardless, you're right about the fact that he's good on top and bottom. Like,
yeah.
I've never seen him on the ground in a position where I'm like, well, he doesn't know what to do here. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that you're probably more right. His like understanding of tactics and strategy and where to take the fight is probably the main reason that he's lasted so long. But I really think his jiu-jitsu is special, and I think that kind of the jiu-jitsu attitude of, like we were talking before, control first, you know what I mean? I think that's really helped him out.
Yeah, I'd be curious to run like through his stats, check his finishes, and see how many of his finishes, like when most of his finishes come. And I would be willing to bet that at least later in his career, his finishes come late in the fight. When did he win this fight?
Third round.
Third round.
Yep.
Yeah, I think he's finishing you when you're not at 100%.
So that's funny you say that because I know it was one of his recent fights. Maybe 2 fights ago. I don't, it doesn't matter. It was like a very recent fight. Knocked this young kid out in like 30 seconds or something.
Yeah. I mean, like, if the win's there, the win's there.
Yeah,
You take it. But, like, my thing is, like, okay, do I want to take you down right now? If you gave me 2 options, all right? You're fresh, you stand up, all right, let's start here, I have to take you down, all right? Or you go run a mile, come back,
Right.
and then I have to take you down.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, oh, go get, like, and then, like, you know, like, and I have to take you down. So, like, there's something in it more than pride to me be like, I can do it at 100%.
Right.
Like, no, like,
Yeah.
I'm going to be like, no, dude, I want you to, so, like, you know, he's tactfully probably grinding these people down to a point where the finish is more available, or just like, you know, it's easier to sub somebody when they're at 40% as opposed to 100%.
Yeah. Well, regardless, the dude's a special fighter.
Yeah,
and,
dude, he's a legend. Is he in the Hall of Fame already?
I don't know, but I mean, clearly
He's a Hall
on
of
his
Famer.
way. Yeah. Oh, I think I saw DC was talking like, oh, he wasn't a champion, blah blah, whatever. I'm like, DC, shut up. Like,
I don't think you have to be a champion to be a Hall of Famer.
well, you definitely don't. There's guys in there who aren't champions.
I don't think you should. I think that this might be a different discussion, but I don't think that should be a hard, fast requirement anyhow, even if you disagree with who's already in there.
I 1000% agree.
Right? Like, there's like their bonuses, records, things like that.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, sure. So, sure, DC, Jim Miller didn't accomplish what you accomplished, you know, becoming a champion, becoming a 2-division champion, all that stuff. But also, you didn't accomplish what he accomplished.
Yeah.
He's been in the game for, you know, ever. And he's racked up, what is that, 43 fights in the UFC?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's special.
Is that the most in UFC history?
I believe so. Yeah, I think he and Andre are like right there. And I believe he has the most wins.
We should fight each other.
All right,
On UFC 300.
Oh, that'd be sick. I think he was talking about fighting some of the older, or, you know, other like older guys, like potentially even Matt Brown.
Okay, I think I
like
saw
that.
a clip of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. I like both of them.
Yeah, get a Masters division going.
Yeah, dude.
I'll dig it.
All right, last fight I want to talk about. This was in the prelims. Marcus McGee, TKOs, Gaston Bolanos in round 3.
Who?
So Gaston Bolanos, Dream Killer, the kid
He's
from
in the
CSA.
UFC?
He's been in the UFC now.
I thought he was in Bellator.
He was. He's
He's in the UFC?
Dude, this is his second UFC fight.
Who did he fight in his first one?
I don't remember he fought in his first one. I don't even think I saw the fight, but I believe he outpointed the guy and won a unanimous decision.
Wow, my mind's. I didn't know he was in the UFC. That's when you said, like, I was like, who?
Yeah,
I was like, I must be confused.
Nope, same guy.
But he
Dream
just
Killer.
lost.
He just lost, and he was outstruck, dude.
No.
I mean, maybe
He's so
not
good.
numbers wise, but like, if it was a
Perception.
you know, if it was a Muay Thai fight, I would have definitely, you know, given it to the other guy.
Hey, this Marcus McGee.
Marcus McGee. I'd seen him fight once before.
I know of some instances where people we know have had personal interactions with him, and he's a super cool dude.
So that's what they said on the broadcast, is he's like super cool, and they say that as the camera's on him, and he's like walking out, and he's saying thank you to everyone who works for the UFC. He's smiling. He just like looks like one of those dudes. You're like, yo, I bet you're awesome.
So I know somebody who reached out to him for advice. They don't know each other, obviously, right? And he took the time to give the advice, which is like, you know, that's already going
Super
above
cool.
and beyond.
Yeah.
And was very gracious in the way that he presented it, and definitely motivational towards the person I'm talking about. Yeah.
Dude, that's so cool.
Which like made me just like I wasn't even like super aware of him.
Yeah.
But like I'm just like, man, like I really hope the best for you.
Well, I don't think you have to hope much, because he is on the way up. He just outstruck Bolanos, who, like, if anyone's not familiar with Dream Killer, he's a dude who had like probably, I don't know, 50, 60, you know, Muay Thai fights. He was a Muay Thai champion, trains out at CSA, right? The dude's a monster striking. You should go back and watch some of his highlights. Hits all these, you know, spinning elbows he's really well known for. You know, just incredible striker. And he came in, and McGee outstruck him. And so this brings me to my questions here. First off, let's talk about McGee for a second. So he's at the MMA lab out in Arizona, right? So he's out there with like Sugar Sean,
Kid in Ear.
I don't know if is he at the MMA lab?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So like they have clearly a lot of good guys there.
Yeah. Benson Henderson.
That's right. Henderson's there. And Henderson's actually another good example of someone who has like exceptionally good MMA striking. You know what I mean? Like very specific. And it's just got me thinking like, how sometimes these guys in MMA will beat these great strikers who come in. And I'm wondering, is it like, how much of it is that the game is different? Small gloves, risk of takedowns, like things are obviously different. How much of it is that like the glove difference itself, not just like the tactics that occur because of that and the stylistic changes that happen from the takedowns, but literally gloves and your defensive abilities. And all a long way of saying this brings me to my big question here. How what have been the best examples of elite strikers who've gone to MMA, and what's the best way to transition someone from being an elite striker to being, an elite MMA fighter?
I think one thing is be a heavyweight or near a heavyweight.
Interesting.
I think it has a better carryover coming from an elite striking to MMA at the heavier weights.
I agree. I wonder if we agree for the same reasons. My reasoning is wrestling.
My reason's wrestling.
Okay, yeah. So, okay, that's very interesting. And also, who comes to mind? I have one guy who just pops in my head first when I think elite striker who then transitions to MMA.
I have three.
All right, I guarantee you mine's and yours. Crow Cop.
Oh, no.
Oh, really? Who were your
No.
three?
Alistair Overeem,
Okay.
Alex Pereira, and Izzy.
Okay. Awesome. Not the first time I've forgotten about Overeem on this podcast.
I mean, K1 champ,
Yeah.
you know.
Okay. So, what would you say? First off, they're all bigger. What would you say makes them different from some of the other people who've transitioned?
As far as like
Their ability
Bolanos
to
and stuff.
Yeah, or just anyone else who has gone from striking into like what makes them special? What do they do well?
You know, I don't know. Do you have something?
I do. I think not just that they're wrestling, because a lot of people think like, and especially when we think like what I was saying, Crow Cop, that kind of first generation, they're like, oh, sprawl and brawl, this guy's got a good sprawl. But I think that if you're, and obviously you need to have a good sprawl, but I think if you're relying on wrestling as your number one way to defeat wrestlers in an MMA fight, you're missing out on the vast majority of it. I think it's like their positioning and their understanding of where someone can shoot on them from, and their ability to dictate when the other guy is set in a way that he can shoot,
So what I would say, coming from a wrestler's perspective, it's the ability. It's easier to control distance at the heavier weights due to there being less dynamic motion, right? So like, is it going to be if we're not moving laterally as much, right? Isn't it easier to control the distance? The less we move, if we're moving less than other people, it's going to be easier for you to control the distance because there's less adjustments you have to do to control that distance.
And
if I'm more dynamically moving, now you have to dynamically move as well to control the distance, right? And there's just more exchanges that happen because of them. So even if I'm only going to get to attempt a takedown in 1 out of 10 exchanges, well, if I create 30 exchanges, then I've created 3 attempts.
Exactly.
And maybe I have a 33% takedown percentage. So that's what it took for me to get 1 takedown. Whereas in a heavyweight fight, like,
you might
you're
be
not
able to
getting
cut
that many
in half or
exchanges.
less.
Yeah. Just due to
The other thing, along those same lines, is if you're a 25er and you're like, hey, I'm going to shoot on this guy a little recklessly, and you get cracked. All right, cool.
Yeah, there's that too.
Whereas if you're a heavyweight and you get cracked, that might be the end of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's interesting. And I think that all the guys that you just mentioned, like the modern era guys, are, especially, I'm just thinking about Izzy, really, really good at kind of like, and I think I might have heard this first from actually at CSA, from Gaston Bolanos' coach, calling it anti-wrestling, and using your striking to shut down wrestling, because that's something you and I talk about a lot. Is in MMA, wrestling setups are not wrestling; it's striking. And so if you have the ability to, one, understand that, and two, then dictate how that occurs in the fight, you can control whether someone shoots on you or not. And that's why I think another important thing, developmentally at least, to go from being an elite striker to an elite MMA fighter, I think you have to do offensive wrestling.
Yeah.
To like fully understand it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. So. Yeah, it gives you a view of that side, better understanding of that side. You know what that person's feeling in those positions. There's often times where I'm teaching techniques in jiu-jitsu, and I'm like, hey, as you're doing this technique, you don't have a full grasp over what it's actually doing, right? And then when it's your partner's turn, then you feel it, right? Like if I were to use an example from today's practice, we were doing some loose passing scenarios, controlling the legs in a supine guard. That's when bottom partner's laying on their back and the top person is standing looking to get around the guard. So just different ways to control the legs, manipulate the legs, and how to flank getting outside and around the legs. And in there, I'm like, okay, so we're doing like A, B, and C, and we're getting around these legs and trying to keep control of them, right? And then the bottom person has to retain their guard, you know, and then and they retain, and it's kind of like an active drill, right? It's like not scripted. I'm trying to stay up here, but it's not live. Like ultimately, I'll let you retain, but I'm not going to help you retain. And it's like, okay, like when you're on top, you're like, okay, like I used a little bit of energy, and that was kind of tough. And then you go on bottom, you're like, whoa. Whoa, the bottom, like it sucks down here. Like this really sucks for me on bottom. So then the next time you're on top, you're like, I know what that's like for you. So you're more confident in it.
Exactly.
Right? Whereas the first time you've never experienced that other person's perspective, so you don't quite get like how good this thing that you're doing is. So you could use that same logic.
So I think if we were to just like kind of condense all of what we talked about down to a couple of key points, if you're an elite striker, which also this is important too because we're talking about an elite striker outside of MMA, because we have elite strikers within MMA like a Anderson Silva.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, like I believe he grew up doing jiu-jitsu as well, and he might kind of have a better feel for, you know, the ground game, and that comes maybe a little more naturally. But what I'm talking about is when you have someone who is an elite striker and has minimal to no ground experience, the key like development points for them are, one, not relying on wrestling to shut down wrestling, right?
Yeah.
Learn about how the striking interactions will dictate the times when your opponent is able to shoot. Two is going to be practice both offensive and defensive wrestling. Because again, like you said, that's just going to help you better understand those positions. And do you have any other point to boil down to it, or just focus on those two?
No, just focus on those.
Right on.
Well, yeah, don't neglect your offensive wrestling just because like you're like, oh, well, I don't want the takedown.
Yeah.
Yeah, like first off, like you have it in your back pocket. That's going to make your striking a lot better. Let's not dive into that.
Yeah, that's a whole different thing. Also, Dagestan could have used some offensive wrestling because he got pieced up.
Yeah, so like, you know, and so you never know when you could possibly use it, and it just gives you like a better understanding on how to, you know, handle it. You know how that other person feels, as we said. Yeah, so there's definitely several reasons, a lot of value into doing it. But I feel like a lot of people who like come with like a pure striking background, they're just like, I just got to learn how to defend wrestling, and then I can just keep it on the feet, and that's where I'll win. Yeah.
White belt mentality, developmental mindset.
Yeah.
Applies everywhere. All right, that's I mean, obviously there are more fights than that, but those are the ones that you wanted to talk about. I have more UFC stuff to talk about, but not that card. Should we? Let's switch to our guys for a little.
Yeah,
bit,
let's
you've
jump
got
off.
some current event things
to
talk about.
Just this past Saturday, one of our fighters, Brittany, she competed in an 80cc rules jiu-jitsu tournament, the Few Will Hunt Open, that was held in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania at 10th Planet Bethlehem, Finishers MMA headquarters. A lot of their events are aired on Flow Grappling. This particular one was live on the Few Will Hunt YouTube channel, so you can also go back and recatch these matches because the live stream has been archived, and Brittany's matches are towards the end of it. She ended up having 2 matches in her division, the 145-pound division. So in Brittany's first match, she got some good experience. Had a little bit of like a highlight reel moment in which a lot of you may have seen, like a little power bomb out of which is legal in the 80cc rule set, which also very applicably applies to MMA, which is also legal. She was placed in a trap triangle, which is when it's just at the ankles, not fully locked underneath the crook of the knee. And she, credit to Coach Will on this, hit a nice power clean of a human and power bombed her down and used it to open the triangle and begin a passing scenario. Ultimately in that match, she won by points. I can't quite remember if she got the mount towards the end. She was near a mount towards the end while attacking head and arm triangle, but she did get a nice clean takedown earlier in the points area of it. So just a good match. In her finals, she went against a very seasoned competitor, Molly Zabrowski, who is a Henzo Gracie Philly Team Daniel Gracie student. Molly, I'm familiar with. I don't know her personally, but I'm familiar with her due to running in like similar circles. I know she's quite experienced or quite credentialed. Currently a brown belt. I've seen that she is placed at some of the ADCC Opens. I also know that she is a world, IBJJF world and Pan American medalist. Definitely at blue belt. I know she was one at blue belt Nogi Worlds. She medaled in weight and absolute, and I saw a Pan medal in there too. I'm not like fully deep in it, and I'm assuming she probably had some very similar success at purple belt, but I'm just not fully astute on it. But Brittany had a great match against her, and that's such a great opponent to go against. Molly is known for having a really good close guard. And we were warned of that by like other people as well. You know, like, hey, watch out for her close guard and stuff. And Brittany was in her close guard and had to deal with it, and she performed very well in it. There's where technique and tactics come into play. So technically, Brittany was definitely able to hang with Molly, right? She did a great job defending a lot of Molly's attacks. She did a great job at pursuing her passes. She did a great job of getting a takedown, although it happened prior to the points period, which speaks to the tactics, right?
Yep.
So Renee Souza, Buggy Choke the World. The event's at his school. That's the school he trains at. So he cornered Brittany in her first match, but unfortunately in her finals he wasn't able to corner her because he had to ref it.
Yeah.
Right? But you know, he calls me afterwards. 'Cause, you know, I'm like, dude, thanks for helping us out, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh, for sure. Nicest dude ever, right? Oh, for sure, brother, like, whatever. And he's like, Brittany's so funny. He was like, she didn't know anything that was going on. And I was like, oh, yeah, dude, she has no clue what's going on. And he's like, yeah. So, like, in the finals of an ADCC rule set, you're not... So... In the ADCC rule set, you can sit to guard without contact in the submission only portion, like free of charge. You can just sit straight down. You don't even have to touch them. Okay, but in the finals, it's a negative point. Okay, whereas also in like the regular one where you can sit free of charge, once points or what you can't sit anymore, it's a negative. Right. So he's like, hey, like, you know, like you can't pull guard at all in the finals because it's the finals. So the whole time it's a negative point. And Brittany, like, the way Renee explained it, Brittany was like, right? And like, he said, and then she like tilted her head and like walked away. And then he said, then she came back and was like, so she can't sit, right? And stuff. And like, Renee was like, yeah, that's what it means. And I was like, yeah, dude. I was like, Brittany doesn't know these rules or whatever. You know, we're focused on MMA. Which, like, you know, it just doesn't matter. So she had a great match. Molly tactically put a lot of pressure on Brittany early, right? And like in ADCC, you get hit. We talked about it in past podcasts. You get hit with stalling, blah, blah, blah. So they're like, action, like, you know, like Molly's like ripping like arm drags and stuff like that. And then the judges are like, we need action. So Brittany probably felt like, oh, I got to do something. And like the goal is to like not waste the takedown before points.
Right.
Yeah,
like
in a way, like it's strategically, it would make more sense to go for other things such as snap downs, which may give you a shot at the front head, foot sweeps, which don't have the risk of shooting in for a high. Like, it's like you shoot him for a leg attack, you might get guillotined, sprawled on, spun behind. Yeah. So really, like, snaps, foot sweeps, and trips, arm drags make a lot of sense in the no points period because the risk-reward ratio works more in your favor, right? Because what about the takedown? What about shooting a single leg or double leg? The reward has been like eliminated.
Right, exactly.
Right? Because now you're on top in a guard, right? And you don't get rewarded for the points. So it would make more sense to look for other things. So I think Brittany felt pressured due to the potential stall shot, got her takedown. So now she's got to pass Molly's guard, and she's doing a great job. You know, she had a couple near passes, like doing some hip switching, but she never solidified the pass. And I'm not like they were near passes, but they definitely weren't passes.
Right.
Like Molly was able to retain guard. So like I'm not like being like, oh, she should have got these guard passes. She did really good jiu-jitsu, but like nothing that would have scored in these instances. They get in a little scramble late in the match. Molly goes for some, can't quite remember, but it was a form of an arm lock. It might have been a straight arm lock. Brittany like rotates it back to her omoplata, rolls out. Molly's looking to come on top for a sweep. Brittany bases out, comes up to turtle, which negates a sweep under this roll set. Molly spins to take the back, and I believe she's awarded the back. That's the only thing that makes sense as far as like the points are concerned. 4-0, but she did not have the back. I was watching from the judges table, and the judges score, not the ref. The judges score. And from the judges table, it looks like it. But then from Emily's camera view, like it's not even like remotely close under any roll set. But that doesn't change anything that we care about, right?
Exactly.
The only thing that would change is it would go to an EBI overtime, and we would get some extra looks because it happened like with the last 20 seconds left.
Right.
So what I'm saying is like sometimes when a score happens early, it changes the way you wrestle the rest of the match because so this didn't change the way the match would have gone, right? If they scored it or didn't score it, the match would have happened to the finale exactly the same. So my point is it doesn't change the value Brittany got out of the match.
Yep.
She got everything she wanted out of that match. You know what I mean? So it just came down to them raising her hand or Molly's hand. The match wouldn't have changed.
Yeah.
You know? So what's it matter?
And not only that, but like, what does Brittany's jiu-jitsu career matter at all? Like, that's not what we're, training her for. You know what I mean? Like,
no.
that's
But it
experience
would
for
matter if
MMA.
she went out there and got submitted. It
Right,
would matter
exactly,
if she went
yeah.
out there and
Didn't get a takedown.
Didn't get takedowns. It would matter if she went out there and got taken down and got her guard passed a
Right,
bunch. Right?
right.
It would matter. It does
Yeah.
matter.
No, for sure. I just mean the win-loss.
Right,
It's
but the
how
win
you
loss.
get to the win-loss.
The win-loss doesn't matter. Yeah, it's what happened. So like at the end of the match, like if they raise Brittany's hand, it doesn't make her learn more from that match, right? Also, them not raising her hand doesn't make her learn more either. Like it's
Exactly.
completely irrelevant. The match has happened. You have gotten the experience of the match, and for your purposes, that's what you were there for. It doesn't mean you're not trying to win. You're trying to win, right? You're trying to do the best jiu-jitsu you can, and you did, right? And they awarded the other person the win. But like for your purposes, you got everything you could get out of there.
Exactly.
Right? You know what I mean? And it's not about like if you're an MMA fighter going into a jiu-jitsu competition, depending on how serious you're pursuing the jiu-jitsu competition, obviously you want to win, right? But what's your real goal of the competition? Was your real goal of the competition to win and get a gold medal? Or did you enter the competition with the idea that it was going to make you a better fighter somehow?
Exactly.
And if that's why you entered the competition, because you believe that this would help you be a better fighter, well then the result is irrelevant as far as the medal around your neck or the win-losses in the
Exactly.
in those perspective columns, right? It's did I leave this tournament better than I came?
Right.
Right?
And I mean, in my mind, it's did you do things that are going to carry over to your MMA game? So like hearing that Brittany got that takedown on a high level competitor, I'm
Right.
like that matters to me. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Not getting positionally dominated matters to me. But again, win
Her
or lose,
takedowns were good, but like I didn't care about her. Like I mean I cared, like I
Yeah,
liked
yeah.
them. But like I wasn't impressed with her takedowns because they were just things that I knew.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, yeah, Brittany got that takedown like as I thought she would. She's good at this particular type of takedown. So yeah, it makes sense. What I was impressed with was she hit a level in her submission defense from guard. Even having an opponent having the ability to attack these submissions was a little bit more difficult. She went against a higher level opponent, a higher level guard player than she ever has. And she more than held her own. I saw drastic progress. Furthermore than that, the style of passing that she was using translates tremendously in MMA, which I love, right? And it was like a new level. Like I've never seen her do these things as clean even in practice, right? So like it's the unconscious motion,
Yep.
right? So like that's what I'm like really pumped about. Like, whoa, like you hit a new level because you did this unconscious motion.
Exactly.
You know, so like the confidence level is at an all-time high with her jiu-jitsu now. And as I was saying, like speaking to any fighter doing a jiu-jitsu tournament with the intent on it making you better, even a jiu-jitsu competitor doing a jiu-jitsu tournament looking for it to make you better, it is not the end result. Like if you're at that point of your jiu-jitsu competitive career where it is just the end result, then you're playing the game.
Right.
You're in it.
Yeah.
You know, like at the Worlds, you're like, I want to win the Worlds.
Yes.
Right? And it doesn't matter if I leave here the exact same as I came. If I got a little worse, but I won the Worlds, like that is the ultimate goal.
Exactly.
So that's that. But like if you're at a developmental phase, it's did you get value from this? Because it would make more sense for you to go lose, but have left better than you came than for you to go win and have not changed.
Mm-hmm.
So if you had to choose between A, losing but being better, or B, winning but staying the same, you're going to choose
Taking
A
all day, yeah.
right? But then we would all choose C, winning and getting
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
That would be like
That would be the idea.
Yeah, we're talking best of both worlds. But like, given the choices of A and B, anybody who is at the developmental phase is choosing A.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're choosing B at the developmental phase, it's ego driven.
Exactly.
Yeah. If you're choosing B and it's not a developmental phase, then you're making the right call. Because it's about winning then.
All boils down to the same thing: developmental mindset.
Yeah, developmental mindset, and having it in the right situations. Mm-hmm. So, dude, it was like super money. I was super pumped, fired up about it. Yeah.
Shout out Brittany, congratulations, that's awesome. Yeah.
Do you want to talk about some upcoming fights?
Yeah, I got.
I think we start with the soonest, which is Saturday.
Saturday, yes. So we've got Brody fighting. So Brody's last fight.
Brody O'Harris or just Brody?
Brody Harris. Brody. So his last fight was for the USK K1 championship, right?
Yeah.
This fight is a Muay Thai fight. And in Ohio, they allow elbows, right?
Can you explain to us the difference between a K1 fight and a Muay Thai fight in under 60 seconds?
Yes. Muay Thai includes clinch, elbows, and knees. K1, there's no clinch and no clinch knees, obviously, and no elbows, period. There are knees on the outside, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, and actually, I shouldn't say no clinch. You get like a 1 second clinch or whatever it is. You get one move in the clinch, and they have to let go. But we can, for all intents and purposes, just say no clinch. But anyways, so this is almost like a warm-up fight for Brody. And I don't mean to say like we're looking past this opponent or anything.
Yeah, you better not, because what if
No, but this is kind of a way for him to get an elbow fight before the TBA tournament.
TBA has elbows?
Yes. And we're going to be at the Tournament of Champions in Columbus at the end of February. So this will give him a chance to crack some elbows in a fight, kind of get used to that, and just stay active. You know what I mean? Because Brody's one of those guys where anytime we have an opportunity to get him a fight, we kind of have to say yes. Because like we've had times where you couldn't get him a fight, you know? Because like I wouldn't want to fight Brody,
Yeah.
So this is just a really cool opportunity to make that happen, get that elbow fight in.
And then at the TBAs, you can't say no. That's
Exactly.
the cool thing about tournament fighting.
Exactly.
Tournament fighting, you can't say no.
And as of right now, his bracket at least has one other fighter in it. So
okay, good.
So we should see some action there.
Well, and then they could just be like, I'm not showing up.
yeah, they could forfeit, but that'll end up the same way that I see things going. Brody's the champ, and that's kind of the first goal. I should say that's part of the goals of the first half of this year. Is he wants to win this next fight, obviously, and then go win that TBA championship. Tournament. Yeah, that's not the main TBAs. That's like I think they call it the Tournament of Champions. But that's a huge step for him. So check that out Saturday. That's going to be in Akron, Extreme Kickboxing.
Is there a stream?
I don't know if there's a stream, but man, if there is, you should check it out because Brody's so exciting. He's long, he's explosive, he's got great IQ. He's got a good inside game, a good outside game.
Yeah.
He has a visually pleasing style. And I mean, the sky's the limit for the kid. So like
for sure. And I mean, if you can make it out, make it out to Akron this Saturday night. I hear it's beautiful this time of year.
Dude, I used to not love going to fights for Akron because we would be in specific areas of Akron. We went to the same theater. It's like in the middle of like downtown Akron. I was shocked. I was like, dude, Akron's kind of cool actually. And this theater is really cool too. So, sorry, Akron, I was wrong.
Oh, okay. I was still talking shit. All right. Oh, Will doesn't talk shit on Akron anymore. Love it. All right, so let's wrap. Go ahead. Or are you going to talk more Brody?
No. Good on Brody. Do you want to talk about some of the other fights?
Yeah, so we're going to wrap it up just talking about we have a fight the following weekend in Cleveland, Ohio at I think it's the Hard Rock Casino up there, a casino in Cleveland. Will Moriarty making his second walk to the cage. So Will came up on the short end of the stick in August for Made Men. And since then, his opponent has fought at least once, if not a couple times. And I know that his opponent has done well.
Yeah.
So, that always bodes well for you. Like, if you fight somebody and then they go do well, it kind of like reinforces. Like if you beat them, it's like, yo, I beat someone good. Or if you lost them, you're like, well, I lost to someone good. But I would say, like, here's the thing, like August being 5 months ago now, like the jump that Will has made is huge. So I'm really excited to see him go there and like put in work. And like, I hate to make, like, I'm not making excuses or anything for his fight in August, but he was like, because it was like, the fight lasted like 2 minutes, but like he was winning like a minute and 55 seconds of it.
It was actually significantly shorter than that, but I think that okay, so Will lost first round. I think it was like 20 some seconds.
There's no way.
I believe so.
Because he was on his back.
I know, dude. That's the thing. So many things happen in that 20 seconds. Go look it up. It's like it's way earlier than you think. But for like a 20-second submission loss, like on paper, that sounds terrible. But when you watch the fight, you're like, dude, this is incredible.
Yeah.
He comes out. First of all, just his preparation for it.
I remember he came out hard kick.
Heavy head kick. Super impressed with that.
I think the opponent
threw a kick
back, and then shot.
I believe he shot. Will took his back.
Yeah, Will took his back off of it. He stood up. Will bombed him, right? Went to throw in his hooks. Went far side hook first. Fell off the top, right? And instead of falling off like towards an arm lock, which, isn't great either, he fell off like hands down, turtle down, and then the opponent like got the reversal off him falling off.
Right.
So it was just like on the edge of being in the best position to just slipping into the worst position.
Right. And like, well, it's one of those fights that, again, on paper, it doesn't look good, but it's like, okay, first, it's your first AMI fight. Like, I know it feels like it means a lot, and it's all right. It doesn't really mean that much. And also, like, again, the fact that he prepared for it the way he prepared.
Yes.
The fact that he stayed consistent since that fight.
Yeah.
I mean, his confidence and just composure going into that fight, I think that he gained a lot from that fight.
I think he gained a lot from that fight, and then since that fight, he's been very consistent, as you said, and he's been really like a team player, helping his teammates for all their fights, holding mitts, and all that stuff, which like is a hidden gem on your own development.
Yes.
Like your own like you develop a lot by doing things like that. So I'm going to be really excited to report back in a couple weeks on Brody's fight and on Will's fight. So the fight team's going strong. We'll have a bunch of other fights to talk about that are coming up in February. One is announced, but we have 4 fights signed in February already, so like, and maybe even some more like down the pipe. So we'll touch on those February fights in another episode here shortly, maybe a little closer to those fights.
I got one last thing.
All right.
Well, actually, I got multiple things, but we only have time for one. So, all right, a couple months ago, or maybe weeks, I don't know.
Oh, yeah, you got one last thing.
I had made a prediction before Leon Edwards fought Colby Covington, and I thought
that he was going to fight him orthodox.
He was going to fight him orthodox.
Did we ever tell them why you thought that?
No, and I don't think we should tell them yet either. First thing is just, was I right or was I wrong? Okay? So, and then first of all, no one like bid on it and like was like, hey, why do you think that? So
okay, yeah.
If someone's interested, let us know. But the first question is, was I right? He came out orthodox. He did most of the first round, if I remember, orthodox, and then he switched a lot. So I said primarily, it might have been less than 50%, so I might have been wrong there, but he came out orthodox, and I feel pretty good about that prediction.
Right, and he's primarily a southpaw.
Yeah. So what do you guys think? Was I right? Was I wrong? And do you want to know why I thought that?
Yep. All right. So those answers and more up soon on future episodes of Listen to Your Coaches. Again, this was this incredibly inspiring episode brought to you by our sponsors, ourselves. All right. We'll see you next time.